Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to the movie Terrifier. So, this is a donation reward from Venom0027, I think the numbers are. Don't mind me, I'm terrible with numbers. I have a list here. Yeah, 0027. Um, and this apparently is a scary clown movie. It's a horror film, and all I know about it is that it has a scary clown on the cover and everything, on the uh, preview images and stuff on Netflix. um, yeah, so let's get into that. Scary clowns. It's actually a very common fear in the world, and for a while it was actually really like it had this huge surge going on of people like coming like out about being afraid of clowns and stuff. I think the term is chlorophobia, if I remember right. Um, and some people just generally find them unnerving. As for me personally, I've never really found clowns to be scary. I mean, I can see why some people do, but I've never personally found them to be scary. I've never been afraid of them. I've never seen them as creepy or weird. Um, to me, they're performers. They're people in face paint. That's how they've always come across to me. Um, Now I've heard the stories like in the news and stuff about people dressed as clowns going around being creepy and weird and stuff. I've obviously heard of the story of people who have used the idea of the party clown in order to get away with stuff. I mean, hell, I did reports in school on the most famous clown, or at least most infamous clown of all time, John Wayne Gacy, who I'm not even going to get into the horrors he committed while being a clown. Um, but yeah, it's like clowns, like I understand where the creepiness factor comes from. I just have never been scared of them personally. If I'm going to be scared of anything, it's going to be the person themselves, like John Wayne Gacy. It's not going to be the aspect of the clown, like the face paint, the outfit. That stuff doesn't make them scarier to me just by existing or just by clowning around and doing their thing. That doesn't make them scarier to me. What makes them scarier is who they are underneath all of that. So yeah. Um, that being said, this is a horror film. And I don't think I've seen a lot of horror films with clowns. Um, God, there's not really like, you would think there would be a lot more than there is. At least I just haven't seen a lot of them, I guess. Um, but horror movies are one of those genres for me, at least, just in general, that is very hit or miss. Um, I believe I've said this in past reactions and stuff, but for me, a horror movie has to hit like two main things. It has to be, well, good. It has to be it has to be either good or so purposefully bad that it's actually kind of funny in that way. If it's bad while trying to be good, that really bothers me. Um, if it's bad, it has to clearly be intentionally so, like it's kind of a joke in and of itself, like the original It movie. But if it just comes across as bad despite intentionally trying to seem otherwise, like the It remake, then it's annoying and takes the fun out of it, basically. Um, But yeah, the movie either has to be good or intentionally bad, and clearly intentionally bad. And the second thing when, that I look for going into a horror movie is it has to have some level of scare to it. It doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to like terrify me or anything, but it does have to have something in it that is genuinely unsettling, frightening, or generally shocking to the point that it bothers me. Um, an actual good example of this, a great example of this, is a movie I just watched for the first time last night called Misery. Misery is a movie starring Kathy Bates and James Caan, and is about a romance novelist who is saved from a wreck by his biggest fan, who turns out to be psychotic and unhealthily obsessed with him to the point where she's purposefully making it so he can't leave. And Misery is most known for this one scene, this like infamously famous scene. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, it's like at this point, it's one of those movies that I'm not worried about the spoiler limit on anymore because it's been so long since it came out. And honestly, considering me, I'm one that usually I'm the one who's late on a lot of these movies. But yeah, the gist is there's this really famous scene where she breaks his ankles to keep him from leaving. It's one of those just really well-known scenes that everyone seems to have, at least as to some degree, seen. Yeah, it was a really good movie, and it did horror right. And it wasn't like scary in terms of like supernatural stuff or even a slasher kind of thing. It did scary in terms of its tension and, well, realism in a way, because psychotic people like this do exist. So it's like, yeah. Um, but it has to have some level of scary. It can be supernatural scary. Supernatural scary, I very much welcome. It can be a slasher. It can be, again, something deeply invested in reality, like Misery. It can be all kinds of stuff. There's no real limit on that. It has to do something that actually scares me. And part of that is within the writing and the acting, because a lot of times bad writing and bad acting, at least for me, can take me out of the immersion of the movie, and it causes the scary parts to not be scary. A great example of that is the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Just the way Freddy is portrayed completely destroys my immersion in the movies and makes him just not come across as threatening to me. Except in the remake. The remake where Jackie Earle Haley played Freddy Krueger was actually really good, and he actually came across as threatening in that one. But all the ones where Freddy's played by Robert Englund, it's like Robert Englund's a great actor, and he does a good job at what he's doing. I won't argue that, but I can't take the character seriously. I can't take him seriously as a threat with him acting the way he does. It just comes across as one of those horror movies that are bad unintentionally so. It's too goofy, but it's also trying to be taken seriously as a horror film, and it's like you can't do both. You can't do both. But either way, so yeah, I don't know much of anything about this movie about Terrifier. I know it is like semi-recent, within the past few years. I don't know if it's Netflix exclusive or not. I know it's on Netflix. Obviously, that's where I'm watching it. Um, I know it has a scary clown. I don't even know what the deal with the clown is. I don't know if it's a slasher. I don't know if it's supernatural. I don't know. I don't know who's in this in terms of actors. Um, I'm almost completely blind. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, this was a donation reward for Venom 0027. Um, so I guess we're going to see exactly why this was suggested for me. And I'm very much interested. Because I do like horror movies when they're good. And I've seen plenty of good ones. And I'm hoping that I continue to do so. And I'm always willing to watch more. So it's like, yeah, I'm hoping that this ends up just really being enjoyable. Um, I am a little worried just as to how much this will actually be frightening or scary to me. Because as I said, I'm not actually scared of clowns. Like, I've seen the design of what this clown in this movie looks like. I had seen it like just randomly about like in the past as well, like not even knowing what it's from. um, I've seen the design. It never scared me. It's like the creepy clown aesthetic does not scare me. Again, it's more about whoever's under that aesthetic. It's more about how it's portrayed and everything. So we'll see. We'll see. Um, hopefully it's good, and hopefully I enjoy this. um, but either way, uh, we are going to get this started. We're just going to get this going, and hope for the best. So thank you, Venom 0027, for your donation, and thank you for choosing to have me react to this. And we will, like I said, just get this started. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so I would not say that this movie was scary. It was disturbing in a couple of points. It was definitely unsettling, but I wouldn't say it was scary. It was more that it got me creeped out and a little disgusted at points. But it wasn't bad. I wouldn't say it was like great or anything, but it wasn't bad. So yeah, let's talk about that ending twist. Um, so as I had mentioned during the movie, I was starting to think that initially I was starting to think that maybe Tara was going to be the girl at the very beginning. But then it ended up being her sister and everything. And I'd started putting that together, and it's like, so it didn't really surprise me when it revealed it at the end. And here's the issue with that. I think it would have been. I think what they were trying to go for was to have it surprise you, which makes the fact that they didn't give good clarification on when the main events of this film were taking place, in contrast to the interview at the beginning. I think that's what they were going for. They didn't want to give you an explanation on the timeline of events. But still, it kind of came across because of that as a little... It just didn't feel right. It felt a little unnatural in its execution. And it's... Because it's... When you really think about it, it's really easy to figure out. Because they know who Art the Clown was in the interview at the beginning. And then, pretty early on in the film, during the rest of it, during the main portion of the film, like, you hear them talk about Art the Clown as if he had never been heard of before, as if it was something still new, something that nobody had known about. So you, at that point, would have to realize it's like, okay, this has to take place before the events of the interview. And it's and then once you figure that out, it's like everything starts to, like, you start to again think maybe it's Tara, then you think it's her sister, and it does end up being her sister. And it just comes across as like it could have been done a little better. It could have been like paced better. It could have been things could have been properly explained through the visuals and through visual cues and stuff better. It just feels like they didn't like put enough effort into that and just were putting in the effort into making it disturbing and sickening and stuff. It's like all of their effort went into that specifically. Um, Now, as I said, the deaths and whatnot were disturbing to a degree, and there was definitely aspects of it and aspects of the horror element and the slasher element that definitely bothered me. Of course, the uh, the bladed cat of nine tails that Art made, definitely that kind of thing freaks me out a bit. Just being whipped with blades is really unsettling. And of course, there's a bit of eye horror in this, which is like, yeah, it wasn't as like big as some other movies and stuff where they focus on it. Um, but it's like it was still there, of course. And then sawing Dawn in half the way he did, it's like that has always bothered me. Just the idea of someone being like cut in half or split in half or whatever, especially vertically. Mostly vertically is where it bothers me the most. That's always bothered the hell out of me. And as I said in the reaction, I can't fully explain why. I don't fully know why. I just know that it always has. I mentioned Blood Sea. For those who don't know, Blood Sea is an anime series that's very much horror themed. Um, I won't go into all of the details, even though it's an older series at this point. Um, but in it, there's quite a lot of very notable deaths. In fact, that's actually something people remember the most about the series. Its death scenes. And it's one of the only anime that has ever made me physically sick, like to the point of legitimately throwing up. The first time I saw those death scenes and stuff, especially certain specific ones, I legitimately did throw up. And one of those death scenes did involve a person being split in half like that. I don't know what it is about it. It just bothers me. Um, Now, this movie didn't really have any main character outside of the bad guy, outside of Art the Clown. You could kind of say Victoria was, but really she wasn't. Because at first you think Tara and Dawn are kind of the main characters that the story's going to follow. Then Dawn ends up, well, you assume she ends up getting killed before she actually does. And then so it starts following very heavily Tara. So you think, okay, she's going to be she's the main character. She's going to be the one to defeat Art in the end and survive. And then she dies. Pretty brutally, too. Like, pretty horribly. And that part really did surprise me. That part really did shock me. Because again, everything had kind of pointed to her being the main character and surviving it. By horror tropes, that's what would have happened. But instead, clearly the writers and director and whatnot, they decided to pull a fast one on you, and it's like, oh, this character you've been following, oh no, she ends up dying like halfway through the movie, maybe a little past halfway. Um, and then we end up following her sister, who kind of takes over as the main character. And of course, in the end, her sister is the one at the very beginning, who was disfigured because her face had been being eaten, and that's just, I guess, what was left to be restored by the hospital. I still stand by that. I think they went a little too far with the look of her disfigured face. Look, I've seen many different stories and whatnot where people who have had their faces disfigured by like one way or another, dogs attacking them and like ripping into their faces and shit, stuff like that. Um, yeah, I've heard of, I've seen what those look like, and I think they went a little far with it. I think it's a little too like goofy looking, a little too ridiculous, like they just went too far with it. Especially since it didn't seem like he was eating her face long enough before the cops came to do that much damage. I don't know. It just seems like it was exaggerated heavily, for like shock factor or something. Um, Art shooting himself in the mouth at the end, committing suicide. One of two things happened there. Either he knew he was going to come back, which does imply a supernatural entity. Well, I mean, the supernatural entity in some way is implied either way. Either he knew he was going to come back, in which case it was kind of like in the same vein of Resident Evil 7, where when Jack Baker does that to himself, it's like just kind of just to freak people the fuck out. Or he legitimately did not know, and he's just crazy enough to just like, okay, I'm obviously caught. I don't want to go to prison or something. Like, I'm just gonna kill myself. And it just seemed weird to me that he would take that route, though. So it's like I almost have to feel like he did know, but then is he supernatural in himself, or is there something else behind it? And it's like I have no clue. Um, that I feel is like the biggest issue with this is that it doesn't explain things well enough, or again, it doesn't have to do like tell us every little thing. But even through the actions of show don't tell, it doesn't give us enough information to truly understand certain elements of it. Like, I'm fine with not like divulging Art's backstory or reasons or anything like that. That's fine. But there's a lot that it's just like they seem to add in for almost no reason. Like the crazy cat lady type character, like what was the point of her being there? Like she didn't really add anything to the story. Like even the only kind of semi-interesting thing that she might have added never really went anywhere. Because it's like there's that one moment where she's like talking to Art, who has her doll, and she's like acting motherly to him, and actually it almost looks like it's working, and then you find out a little bit later that he's skinned her, and yeah, is wearing her scalp and torso skin and everything. Um, but it's like, what was the point of that? What was the point of Mike's friend? Why was he needed? I feel like these characters were added in just to add in an extra gory death. You know, of course, the woman being skinned and everything, and Art wearing her skin and everything, like a creepy weirdo. And of course, Mike's friend being decapitated. It just feels like that's all that they were there for. Or Mike's friend. Did I say Art's friend? Mike's friend. Um, I feel like they didn't need to do that. And it kind of took away from some of the other characters who felt like they had a bigger role, such as Mike, or honestly, Tara in a lot of ways. Tara felt extremely underutilized in the long run. Um, all in all, it feels like that's what this movie was. It was shock factor. It was trying to shock you, it was trying to disturb you, it was trying to gross you out, and a lot of that succeeded. But in terms of its story and characters is kind of where it fell flat. It it was flat. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And the movie overall was not like a bad movie. Like I don't regret having seen it. But there's things that just don't add up and things that just feel like they were underutilized and everything. And on top of it, why did Victoria attack the reporter in the end and gouge out her eyes? Like, yeah, she was being kind of a bitch. She was being insulting and shit and saying that Victoria was horrifying looking and shit. That's wrong. That's terrible. But why was Victoria even back there in her dressing room? One. Two, why did she just attack her like that? I don't understand. After everything that happened to her, I feel like she wouldn't do something like that. It kind of makes no sense. It would have made more sense for Art to have been there. For one thing, that would have been a better reveal, like, oh, at that point that Art is still alive than what they showed of him just kicking the TV and packing up his weapons and stuff. That would have been a better way to handle that. And it wouldn't have made Victoria's character just kind of seem randomly psychotic for that sake of it. I don't really have any strong issue with the fact that there wasn't any like noteworthy survivor kind of thing. Like in a lot of these horror movies, there's always someone who survives mostly unscathed in the end. They'll have like some bruises, some cuts, maybe a couple broken bones, but they survive. Um, but in this one, it's like Victoria does survive, but she's horribly disfigured. You have to presume she's somehow mentally destroyed to the point where she's become, for some strange reason, aggressively hostile and psychotic. Again, even though it kind of makes no sense, all things considered. It's just like, did the same girl really get out of there? I don't know. It seems like they were trying too hard. It just seems like they were trying too hard. And it just left a lot of issues. But like I said, I don't have any issue with having seen it. It was entertaining. I can't argue that. It was entertaining for what it was. And it definitely had some disturbing, unnerving, frightening moments. So it succeeded in that factor. I would say that this succeeded as a horror movie, going with what I was saying in my pre-thoughts. I would say this succeeds as a horror movie. but it's definitely not a great horror movie. It's definitely a B movie. And it definitely reads that way. Um, and not for the best reasons. But yeah, yeah. I thank you, Venom, either way, for suggesting this, for having this as your donation reward. Um, I thank you for just continuing to support the channel and everything. Um, and yeah, if you wish to donate in the future for whatever, please do. I accept donations at any time, not just during mega streams. And yeah, if you have any other movies or whatnot you'd like me to react to, that's the best way to get it done. um, so yeah, yeah. Tell me in the comments below what you thought of Terrifier, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.